Howdy folks, welcome to another beautiful day out here in West Vancouver. In today's video we're going to look at our recent trip down to Point Roberts. I've got the whole trip there. It's about 30 minutes long. I'm going to tell you all about Point Roberts and you can see what it looks like there. Check it out. Okay, cool. This was the international marketplace, which is just like about a kilometer from the border as you drive into Point Roberts. There's only one road into Point Roberts with the US, obviously, a customs point and Canadian customs point. Not a very big customs point. I think the US side has 3 lanes, one for Nexus, one for normal, and one for special or something like that. But it's never busy. I mean, we got there was no other cars. So Point Roberts is about roughly 4.9 square miles or 1,200 hectares. And it looks like I'm driving really fast. The speed limit is 25 k's an hour. And I've just sped up this film video to double speed so that you don't have to sit here for an hour listening to me. Anyway, so on the left there, you could have seen where you see the marina, or it was the marina. We drove right down to Point Roberts. The ocean is in front of us, and we are going to swing around to Lighthouse Park now. Now, just a few interesting facts about Point Roberts. Point Roberts is what's called an enclave, which means it is not an island, but it's a piece of the USA that's not an island. It's attached to Canada, and the only way you can get there is either by air, by sea from the US, or you have to drive through Canada. Something that some of the locals were telling us was an absolute pain in the ass, because what happened during COVID when the land borders were closed, you know, the one gentleman was saying he had to take his wife to the dentist in Blaine, Washington. So it's a half an hour drive through the US through Canada to get there, but the land borders are closed. He says what a pain that was, trying to explain to the guys that you have to drive through. And then of course what they also did was they timed you. So when you leave the border, go through the border on this side and back out on the other side, they timed you to make sure that you don't like dilly-dally while you're in Canada. You just drive straight through. Apparently it was a bit of a crazy time during COVID. It is such a beautiful little place though. It feels like a little holiday town, which I guess it is, because I mean the one gentleman online, they say about 50% of the residents are 50% of the residents are Canadians or Canadian holiday homes. The one guy there was telling us that about 70% of the people that hang out in Point Roberts are actually Canadians that own homes there. But it is, like I said, it's an absolutely beautiful little holiday town. I mean, look at it. Look, it was also a beautiful day, beautiful and sunny. But yeah, very relaxed, very laid back. There's not much happening there. There's a grocery store, the international market that you saw in the front. There's a couple of, I think a couple of other little stores, a few gas stations, a couple of restaurants or places. Like this is the cafe that we were at, that just there on the right. Yeah, so you've got all of these little places. There's a pub up front and a liquor store. So, you know, there's that. But I guess most of the business, most of what happens in Point Roberts really is tourism. And then, of course, also there's the international parcels. There's like a lot of places that accept that you get mailboxes. So you set up a mailbox over there and you mail your stuff. I've spoken about it before in the videos, because the problem with mailing stuff from the US or having stuff delivered from the US to Canada is that it has to go through the border. And going through the border, it needs to go through customs. And going through customs, there's a clearing fee. Now, there's normal taxes and stuff, which is only like 5%. It's not much. But the issue is the clearing fees. You know, I've had a situation where I had like, I think it was a $10, almost a $10 thing mailed to me from the US to Canada. I had to pay like just under $1 in taxes, but there was a $65 clearing fee from UPS. You know, so in total the thing cost me $10, but I had to pay $65 clearing fee. So that's why people set up mailboxes in the US. It's just so much easier You drive across, you go fetch your stuff, you come in, you don't have to deal with all these clearance fees and customs fees and all of that crap. And you know, a lot of places don't actually deliver to Canada from the US because of the fees, the costs. Anyway, so yeah, most of what happens in Point Roberts, the moment you drive in, I think about 300 meters from the gate, the first building is a mail house, in and out mail house. There's a UPS store, there's a post office, there's a Shell garage that receives parcels. I mean, I think that's the main business in Point Roberts, is everybody receiving parcels from on behalf of Canadians. Which is actually kind of funny, because the only way those parcels get there is obviously being driven through Canada to Point Roberts. So it goes from the US, through the Canadian border, through Canada, through the US border, back through the border back into Point Roberts on the US side, and then you can go pick it up there and take it back out. I suppose that's funny. Right over here is Monument Park. That's the first park we stopped at. I did post a video about that. And this is the crazy thing. I mean, right there, that house on the right there, that is Canada. I obviously cut out the piece where we walked around the park. We didn't just drive there and stop quickly. Anyway, so this is Monument Park with the totem pole. Which we stopped at. There's a video about that as well. Anyway, so check at this. This is actually quite funny. So on those houses are in Canada. The border is pretty much this little ditch here on the side, on the left. And you will check now that a lot of people have actually, the Canadians have gone behind their fences and they've got gardens. One guy set up a full-on putting green between the border and his back fence. It looks like everybody is just, you know, taking up the extra space there at the back. Check it out. See there, like people have made gardens. It's actually so funny. It's like, hey, this is just like, I have my putting green on the border. Where is this guy? There it is, I think. Anyway, yeah, so this is quite funny. I mean, everything you see on the left is Canada. I suppose it doesn't help much if you sneak across the border from Canada into the US, into Point Roberts, because it's not like you can go anywhere from there. Like, you know, the only way back out of Point Roberts, unless by boat or plane, is through the border. And there's not a lot of planes and there's not a lot of boats. And I get the feeling that if you arrive in a boat from Point Roberts at Seattle or somewhere else, they're going to check you out anyway. The locals were joking. They say that this is the safest gated community in the whole of America because, you know, they've got the US Border Patrol securing their community. Ain't nobody coming in there that's not supposed to be there. In fact, it's so secure that it's actually apparently, according to some online sources, home to a high percentage of people in witness protection program. Because, you know, not a lot of criminals can get to Point Roberts. Because in other words, in order for a criminal to get from the US to Point Roberts, unless obviously he uses a boat or a aeroplane, he literally has to go through Canadian border and border post and through the US border post. And Canada doesn't let anybody with a criminal record from the US go through the border post. So very, very secure. They also say that there's very little crime in Point Roberts. There's only about 1,100 permanent residents based on the 2020 census, I believe. And they say that there's very little crime in Point Roberts because it's such a small community and there's nowhere to run to. I mean, if you cause trouble there, they're going to find you. You're right there. There's nowhere else to go. So that is quite cool. And check here, service stations, all of them receive parcels. I must say it was a beautiful day. It was actually quite cold, but very, very nice day. Okay, so a little bit about the history of Point Roberts. In 1846, Great Britain and the United States signed the Oregon Treaty, establishing the 49th parallel as the boundary line between the United States to the south and the British territory to the north. And that is when they realized that this lower part of the Tawasan Peninsula dipped down into the United States. And occasionally there was talk over the years to rather incorporate it into Canada or into British Columbia, but never came through. So in the early years, nobody really was much interested in Point Roberts, and it was almost kind of a no man's land. In 1858, there was the Fraser River Gold Rush, and that set off a whole stampede of prospectors pouring into British Columbia, and Point Roberts was a jumping off point for a lot of these prospectors. It also was a space where it had something to do with taxes, so the prospectors that were based in the US didn't have to pay taxes on the gold and stuff that they find on the other side. But there was no real border, there was no border posts or anything. It was just a piece of that. And then in 1858 or 1859, the gold rush ended and it was almost like completely done. And then Point Roberts, nothing really happened. In 1859, the United States established a military reserve at Point Roberts, although they never sent any military personnel or equipment there. It was just a military reserve. So that kind of stopped all development. Nothing much happened there. It was mostly a place for smugglers because, you know, it's obviously a cool spot if you want to smuggle stuff in and out of Canada and you have a boat you can leave from there. So it was a lot of smuggling. It was actually funny. Okay, but before we go further, check out the little deer in front there. It's like, just this deer walking across the road. Anyway, so there was a lot of smuggling that happened in Point Roberts. It was actually quite funny. They have these little signs all over the island where they talk about significant people that lived there over the years. And one of them was a person by the name of Pansy May Stuttered. I mean, they've got a photo of the old lady. She's probably about 80 with a gun in her hand. And she was one of the biggest alcohol smugglers because Prohibition ended in British Columbia in 1921, but it continued in the United States until 1933. So she opened this little house right on the border, that house there by Monument Park when we were there, the one sitting right on the border. She opened up basically a pub over there, and she served alcohol over the border. And at the bottom, she had like a whole lot of alcohol that she sold. People would come around with their boats and come and collect alcohol over there. So the old lady was a big smuggler. Pansy May leased 27 acres of isolated Canadian land along the border with Point Roberts, and from a home built up against the boundary line, she smuggled liquor into Point Roberts, including an elaborate pulley system which ferried cases of illegal goods to the beach below on a cliff where American ships could come at night to pick the booze up and bring to US markets. In 1920s, Pansy May enlarged her home to create a bar and added a second building which was used as a brothel. This cabaret, also known as the Goat Ranch, had a dance floor and 16 rooms rented by the hour. Although she was temporarily shut down and fined by authorities on a few occasions, Pansy May's business was known as a place to bring a girl for a drink, and if you don't have a girl, we'll supply one. Basically, her business shut down in 1933 at the end of Prohibition. So yeah, there was a lot of smuggling going on in Point Roberts. That was mainly it. They say at that stage it was a fairly dangerous place with lots of smugglers and lots going on. And then in 1870s, people started homesteading. First guy to settle down there was John Harris in the 1870s, I believe, 1873 or something. And since then it started building out. In 1892, the US government cancelled the whole military reserve thing. So from then it started developing. But yeah, Honestly, house prices in Point Roberts, because there's a whole lot of spaces for sale, and we were looking at it. And house prices there, while it's cheaper than in Canada, it's not like significantly cheaper, but I guess it's pretty much because it's mainly Canadians buying here anyway. So it's Canadian money coming across the border. Most of the homes here, 70%, this gentleman said, actually belongs to Canadians as holiday homes. It's funny, it's weird if you think about how things need to work, because in the US, fuel prices are displayed and in gallons, but in Point Roberts, it's displayed mainly in liters and with gallons next to it. The stores in Point Roberts, like the international market, it was quite funny. We went there and we found this ice cream, our favorite ice cream in the world, Talenti. It's the best ice cream in the world, but it's only available in the US. And we only found it in Florida, and then we stopped at the international market and they have it there, and it's priced as $7.49. Now, we are in the US, so we assumed it's US pricing. And then when we paid for it, we used our American credit card, and Belinda looked on the slip and she says, but it's only $5 each. It was marked $7.39. Why is it only $5? Turns out that how it works at a lot of these stores, including the international market, is that things are priced in Canadian dollars because there's so many Canadians. You can pay in Canadian dollars or US dollars. The tills actually apparently have two different layer trays, one for Canadian change and one for US change. And every day it gets upgraded to or updated with the latest exchange rate. Interesting. Very, very different. I mean, obviously, Point Roberts is so far from the US, it's almost like a hybrid Canada, to be honest. Check out this area. I mean, this is absolutely beautiful. So just a little fun story. The gentleman driving in front of us, we were walking at Lighthouse Park, and Andy came walking from the front, and I was wearing my Springbok shirt, and he asked, are you over your hangover yet from celebration? So we stopped and we started chatting, and then Andy is like, hey, there's a bunch of other South Africans that also live in Point Roberts. I know 2 South African guys. Let me go and introduce you if you want to follow me. So yeah, we are following Andy. He's taking us to go and meet other South Africans that live on, or another South African that lives on in Point Roberts, which was actually so cool. But it's also cool. I mean, we drove through the area, and he just dropped off his wife quickly because he was taking us further. Yeah, it was such a nice place. I mean, there's such cool little homesteads around here. That was absolutely amazing. And check at this. This is like a little horse paddocks on the side here, and fruit trees and a garden. Point Roberts is a very sunny place. It's almost like, I don't know, lots of sunshine around. Anyway, here Andy is taking us on the rest of the road trip to go and show us the other park, which is also cool. Sorry, just trying to get the camera to work here. There we go. Anyway, yeah, Point Roberts is a very, very interesting little place, and I'm definitely going back there. Definitely next summer we got to go and put together a picnic and go hang out and watch whales, because there at Lighthouse Park, apparently during summer you can see whales and porpoises and all kinds of wild sea life, which is amazing. And he was just telling us something over here. Very kind of, yeah, holiday atmosphere, as you can see. It's like really, really, it's beautiful. I really enjoyed it. Laid back, quiet and relaxed. Of course, the area where we're going right now, on the eastern side of Point Roberts, is also quite a nice place. But yeah, still funny thing is when you drive along the border and you see the houses, and then you hear people complaining about border patrols and borders, and I saw some politicians talking about how secure is the Canada US border, and then you check places like this, and then you read about other places where the border runs through a library and stuff like that. Look, I suppose the border is very highly patrolled, especially, they say, since obviously September 11, 9/11, things have gone significantly more strict along all the US borders, obviously, and since then it's also been a lot more patrolled. So there's cameras and sensors and stuff along this border that checks if anybody crosses the border. But then again, I also have to tell you, I didn't see any cameras, or I didn't see any sensors, so maybe they're watching us from space, who knows. But yeah, border didn't look super secure to me. But then again, I mean, who's going to sneak into Point Roberts, or who's going to sneak from Point Roberts into Canada? I'm not so sure that that's a huge risk, I guess. And then, of course, there are a couple of older places around as well. And then you've got a couple of really nice, fancy new homes. By this time, we were also getting into the late afternoon. I mean, we just went to Point Roberts. We thought we were going to drive around there for an hour or two and get home, and eventually we spent the whole day there. Oh, check it this. This is the east coast of Point Roberts. And Tawasin on the left, obviously. And then you've got the US in front of you there. Just below the wall on the left here, there's actually quite a nice beach apparently. Today it was, well, on Sunday it was covered in kelp, but according to Andy, that's where people hang out in summer. It's actually a swimming beach, sandy, and he reckons lots of people hang out there, but you can check it out. I mean, look at the holiday town atmosphere. We are going around to another park now. Oh, what's the name now? I can't remember. We'll see when we get there. Which has got some really nice views off there. I actually think I do have a video of that too, which I will post. Some of the views from the park. The one where there's an owl attacking people, apparently. I enjoy driving around like this. I gotta say, it's like seeing all these different places. I wish my memory was a lot better so I can remember it for longer. Well, at least I got the video, so I can always go and check the videos, I suppose. Yeah, this is it, eh? Beautiful, beautiful space. I don't know what it looks like when it's all snowed up in winter, but it was stunning when we were there on Sunday. Lily Point, that's the park we're heading to. It's apparently the most scenic part of the island, where there's like a 200-foot cliff that you can stand and overlook the bay below, and you can see all the way to the US and see an absolutely stunning view of Mount Baker from there. I think there's another video, I'll share that too. Anyway, so yeah, Lily Point is where we're heading. It's a beautiful place. So Point Roberts is, while it's an American community, it's very much Canadian, because in, what did they say, there was 1,100 or 1,300 people in the last census, permanent residents, but that more than triples during the summertime with all the Canadians that own property there that come down for the holiday. I mean, some of the people we met there are Canadians that live in Canada, and they go down to Point Roberts every weekend. They've got their little horse farm down there, or their little 5 acres of land where they have horse paddocks, and yeah, it's a different style of life. It's absolutely stunning, actually. I mean, it looks like a fun way. Of course, it was a total mess during COVID when people got stuck in the US and they had their horses down in Point Roberts. So, but luckily, friendly neighbors and people that was there that could take care of everything. Check. One of the things that I love about Point Roberts is the friendly people that we met there while we were there. I mean, we were there for the day. We didn't we just drove around. We met this lady at the restaurant, the Australian lady that was telling us she's been there for 2 years, and we were chatting. And then walking on the beach filming, we ran into Andy, who took us on a sightseeing trip around the island and introduced us to other South Africans. Apparently there's 2 other South African couples living in Point Roberts. We met the one. So yeah, I mean, we just kind of cruising around and we meet these people, and like Andy is the nicest guy. He fought in the Vietnam War, and he's been around Point Roberts. He bought his first home there in 1991, he said. And, you know, he was just showing us the island, taking time out of his Sunday to show us the place. I mean, how amazing is that? But then again, I suppose, you know, you also got to open yourself up to that kind of thing happening to you, because we are like that, me and Belinda. When we cruise around, we actually just, you know, we stop and we smile and we chat and we say hello to people and we interact with people, and with big friendly smiles on our face. And it allows people to also open up, you know. And that's how you experience these places. I should have actually asked Andy if he's willing to go on the video and tell us a little bit about it. But anyway, so this was our day in Point Roberts, folks. It's this is towards the end of the day. Still, once again, look at the beautiful sunshine and the beautiful place. Lots of green around and lots of forest, but also lots of green land. This is heading out. We're heading back to the border as we speak. In front there, we are going to quickly fill up with fuel, I guess. Because obviously fuel is significantly, well, definitely a bit cheaper in the US than in Canada. So we quickly pulled in here to fill up and save a few bucks. And then, of course, first we had to come and buy our ice cream. We went and bought all of the Talenti at the store. It is the best ice cream in the world. I tell you what, if you're ever in the US, especially in the South, try Talenti ice cream. It is absolutely amazing. We love the salted caramel with chocolate truffles. Oh, that is so good. Well, there was another one, the triple mix as well, that we tried, that we got one of when we were here, and it's amazing. Of course, and then fill up the car, because petrol is definitely cheaper in the US than in Canada, and you don't have to pay all the carbon taxes and other crap that we have to deal with out here in Canada. So that helps a lot. I wanted, actually, apparently lots of people that live close to the border drive across the border to go and fill up their cars, because I think petrol is about it's significantly about 50 cents or so cheaper per liter than in the US than in Canada. So it makes a difference. I don't know, on a 60 liter tank, $30, not sure. Any which way, this is the main road out of Point Roberts on the way back to Canada. So check it out. So we're heading to the border post now. Such a tiny little border post, but cool. I mean, guys were friendly and it was nice. Lots of people on bicycles that come through to Point Roberts for the day. Check, here's 2 cyclists on the front and the right here going back to Canada. And when we came in, there were some cyclists coming into the US. And anyway, there's the border post right in front of us. We actually had to wait. We were stuck behind a car there. Drive up. There's the US border post on the left over there, the 3 gates, and this is the Canadian border post. I mean, you know, honestly, we got to the border. The guy was like, yeah, what are you doing? How did you pick anything up or buy anything? Because, I mean, that's mainly the only reason, one of the main reasons people go from Canada to Point Roberts is to go buy cheaper groceries in Canada or to go collect parcels. So he was asking, and we said, we bought 3 tubs of ice cream, and he's like, okay, go. I mean, they're not really like looking for serious smugglers. I think oftentimes they actually don't even want the paperwork, so they're asking you just to ask you. No, it's not like Australian border where you see in this border patrol reality TV series where they shake people down and check them out. The Canadian border is actually very lax around that. I remember I went through the border the other day with a bunch of stuff, and the guy was, he's like, "What are these?" And I'm like, "Well, it's a failed Amazon business, Poppy Pigs." He's like, "Okay, how much are they worth?" I'm like, "A couple of $100. He's like, "Okay, cool, go." I mean, he probably knew I was talking crap, but he just kind of, he didn't want to bother to actually go through all the trouble to shake me down. So this is Canada again, Tawasin, which I have to be honest, we actually planned when we drove through Tawasin on the way in to Point Roberts. We were saying, hey, we should come back and drive around Tawasin because it actually looks like a really, really nice area. It was just, I don't know, it just had this really cool feel about it. It's kind of newish, modern, beautiful, clean. It's a little flat, no mountains around, but you have the views of the island and the mountains and everything. It just kind of, I don't know, it felt like a really nice area. So we will have to go back and go visit Tawasin as well. Well, that's about it, folks. We are getting towards the end of the clip. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed the trip, and see you again soon.